Marcus awoke to the cold feeling of metal cuffs biting into his wrists. His head throbbed, his body ached, and the air smelled strange like burnt wood and spices he didn't recognize. When his blurry vision cleared, he found himself inside. A dark, circular chamber made of stone and wood. Dim flickering lights hung from the ceiling. The walls were carved with symbols he couldn't read. He tried to move, but the chains rattled loudly, reminding him he was not free. His heart raced. The last thing he remembered was his ship crashing on this alien planet after being shot down. He had tried to escape into the forest, but something or someone had captured him. Now, he was their prisoner. Then he heard footsteps, heavy yet graceful. A tall figure stepped out of the shadows. It was a woman, but not human. Her skin was a deep, glowing blue, her long white braids falling over armored shoulders. Her eyes glowed faintly silver, and pointed ears peeked through her hair. She was beautiful in a dangerous, otherworldly way. She carried a large, curved sword strapped to her back. Marcus tensed. If she was here to kill him, he wouldn't stand a chance. But she didn't draw her weapon. She stood a few feet away, her gaze fixed on him, not with hatred, but with curiosity. "You are awake, human," she said in a deep but smooth voice. Her language was foreign, yet somehow he understood. Maybe a translator device had survived. In his suit, Marcus stayed silent, watching her every move. "I am Jira," she introduced herself. "You are a trespasser, but you are different." Marcus frowned. "Different? How?" Jira stepped closer, her boots thudding on the stone floor. "When we captured you, the sword reacted," she said, almost like she didn't believe it herself. She reached behind her and slowly unsheathed the sword. It was magnificent silver. Metal with glowing blue patterns etched along the blade. She held it carefully, almost reverently. "This sword belonged to my father," she said, her voice heavy with emotion. "No one since him has awakened its glow. But when you were brought here, it lit up." Marcus stared, confused. "Does that have to do with me?" Zira's eyes darkened. "I don't know, but my father died protecting your kind long ago. It is said a human saved his life once, and in return, he died saving a human colony. Since then, no human has set foot on this land until you." Marcus struggled against the cuffs. "So you think I'm connected to your father somehow?" "I don't think," Jira replied, kneeling in front of him. "The sword thinks so. It only glows when it senses worth." She lifted the sword slightly. And indeed, the blue veins along the blade shimmered brighter the closer it got to Marcus. Marcus couldn't understand it. He was a pilot, not a warrior. But the sword seemed alive in its own way, calling to him. "Why bring me here then? Why not just kill me?" Marcus asked. Yera looked away for a moment, her expression torn. "I should have, my people wanted. Me too, but I couldn't. There is something about you, something familiar." Marcus's heart slowed. For the first time, he saw not a captor, but someone burdened by an invisible weight. "What do you want from me?" he whispered. ZHYRA stood up, the sword still glowing. "I want to know why the sword chose you. And if you have even a fraction of my father's spirit inside you." Suddenly, the heavy wooden door creaked open. Another alien stepped in, a brutish male, taller than Jira and covered in scars. His eyes burned with suspicion. "Why is the human still alive?" he growled. "He should be dead." Shira didn't flinch. "He stays," she said firmly. "I will decide his fate." The male snarled but didn't challenge her. He left with a grunt, slamming the door shut behind him. Shira sighed, turning back to Marcus. "You won't last long if I don't protect you. My people hate your kind, but I need answers." Marcus nodded slowly. Then, free me. Give me a chance to prove myself. Gira hesitated, then shook her head. Not yet. First, I must be sure. If you are truly worthy of my father's sword, you'll survive the trial I have in mind. What trial? Marcus asked, his voice uncertain. Zira's lips curved into a faint, almost sad smile. One that will either kill you or makes you a legend. As she walked away, sword in hand, Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever was coming. He wasn't just fighting for his freedom, he was stepping into a legacy written long before he was born. Hours passed. Marcus didn't know if it was day or night. The fortress was quiet, but the silence was heavy, like the calm before a storm. His arms were sore from the chains, his body weak, but his mind was wide awake. Then, the door creaked open again. Gira stepped inside, carrying a wooden tray with a small bowl of food and a flask of water. Marcus stared at her, surprised. I thought I was a prisoner, he muttered. You are Gira, replied, placing the tray in front of him. But even prisoners need strength for what's coming. Marcus eyed the food suspiciously. You're not trying to poison me, are you? Gira let out a low chuckle, the first sign of humor he'd seen from her. If I wanted you dead, human, I'd do it with my own hands. He slowly picked up the bowl. The food was strange, some kind of mashed root, but edible. As he ate, Gira sat across from him, watching in silence. What trial are you planning? Marcus asked between bites. Gira looked at the sword resting beside her. She traced its patterns with her finger, her face distant. This sword, she said softly, is not just metal. It carries my father's soul, his honor, his pain. It chooses its next wielder when it senses a spirit like his. But no one, not even me, could awaken it. Marcus paused. Why not you? You're his daughter. Gira's jaw tightened. Because I am not like him. My father was a hero. I am a warrior, but my heart is not pure like his. I carry too much anger, too much loss. For the first time, Marcus saw a crack in her arm, not physical, but emotional. She wasn't just a warrior. She was a daughter, chasing the shadow of a father she couldn't live up to. My people, she continued, believe strength is all that matters. My father believed in something more: honor, mercy, unity. He was mocked for it. Then he died protecting humans, leaving me behind. I grew up hearing that he was a fool. Gira looked up, her silver eyes locked on Marcus. But I never hated him. I hated that I couldn't be like him. And when I saw the sword glow for you, it hurt. Marcus felt a pang of sympathy, because you wanted to be worthy. She nodded silently. I don't understand why me. Marcus admitted, I'm not a warrior. I'm a pilot, an explorer. I've never even held a sword like that. Yet, it chose you, Gira whispered. That means you have something my people can't see. That's why I haven't killed you. Marcus put the empty bowl aside. You said there's a trial. What is it? Gira stood, lifting the sword with both hands. At sunrise, I will take you to the trial of spirits. It's a place where your mind and soul are tested. If the sword deems you worthy, it will grant you its full power. If not, it will consume you from the inside. Marcus swallowed hard. That's not a comforting thought. It's not meant to be, Gira said. The sword doesn't give power easily. It demands sacrifice. Before she left, she paused at the door. I don't want you to die, human, but I must know if my father's choice long ago was right. If his belief in humans was not a mistake. Marcus watched her leave, the door closing with a heavy thud. He leaned back against the cold wall, staring at the flickering light above. He had crashed on this planet by accident. captured by aliens, and now was being dragged into an ancient legacy he didn't understand. And yet, a part of him wanted to see it through. Not just to survive, but to prove he wasn't just a prisoner, to prove he could be worthy. Outside the fortress, dawn was coming, and with it, the trial that could either make him a legend or kill him. The first light of dawn slipped through the cracks in the wooden walls, painting thin golden lines across the floor. Marcus stirred, his body stiff from sleeping on cold stone. The sound of boots echoed again, and when the door opened, Sira stood there, armored and prepared. "Time to move, human," she said firmly. Without argument, Marcus stood. She unlocked his cuffs, but left a rope tied around his wrists, not tight, but enough to remind him he wasn't fully trusted. They walked through narrow stone corridors, then out into the open. Marcus gasped quietly. The fortress sat high on a rocky plateau, with strange trees twisting up from the valleys below. Two suns hung low in the sky, bathing the world in amber and gold. Zira led him to a small platform where a creature waited, a massive beast, like a cross between a lizard and a bird, with scales that shimmered like polished stone. "Climb on," she ordered. "You want me to ride that thing?" Marcus asked, eyebrows raised. Zira narrowed her eyes. "You want to walk? It's a 3-day journey on foot. The beast takes us in a few hours." Marcus sighed, then awkwardly climbed on behind her. As the creature leaped into the air, the wind roared in his ears. Below, rivers coiled like silver veins through the dark forests. "Where are we going exactly?" Marcus shouted over the wind. Zira didn't look back. The trial of spirits. A place where minds meet the past. If the sword accepts you there, you'll live. If not, you'll be nothing but bones. "Great," Marcus muttered, holding on tighter. After hours of flight, they reached a strange stone circle on top of a lonely mountain. Of carved statues of warriors, some human, some alien, stood in a ring. Watching silently, Zira dismounted and pointed to the center. "Step inside the circle." Marcus obeyed. She tossed the sword to him. The moment he caught it, the blade pulsed faintly, the blue veins glowing under his fingers. "What do I do?" he asked. "Hold it tight and close your eyes," Gira said. "Let it show you its truth." Marcus did as told. The instant his eyes shut, a burning warmth spread from the sword into his hands. Then his arms, and finally his head. Suddenly, he wasn't on the mountain anymore. He stood in a vast void of swirling lights and shadows. Shapes flickered around him, ghostly figures of warriors clashing, battles of the past. Then a voice echoed, deep and commanding. "Why do you seek thee? Sword's power, human." "I didn't seek it," Marcus said aloud. "He called to me. I don't know why." A figure stepped from the light. It was a towering alien warrior, glowing blue like Zira, but older, with eyes like burning stars. "I am Valkyr, father of Zira," the figure said. "This blade carries my soul and my will. I gave my life for a human colony, believing in the unity between our races. But such belief is not given, it must be earned. Why should I trust you with my legacy?" Marcus swallowed, his throat dry. "Because I don't want your power. I don't want to be a hero. But I won't run from it if it means protecting life's years, mine, Zira's people. If I have to fight, I'll fight. I won't waste your sacrifice." Valkyr watched him silently, then smiled faintly. Courage, honesty, and an unwilling heart that still steps forward. Perhaps that is what makes you worthy. The void exploded in light, and the warmth in Marcus's chest burned brighter. His eyes flew open. He was back on the mountain, still holding the sword. But now, the blade wasn't just glow. It glowed with brilliant blue energy, humming with power. Zira stared, her mouth slightly open. "You did it," Marcus looked at the sword in awe. I spoke to your father, at least his spirit. Zira stepped closer, hesitant. What did he say? That I'm worthy, Marcus whispered. For a moment, Zira seemed ready to cry, but she straightened. Then we have little time. The enemy approaches. They seek that sword for themselves. They get it, they'll destroy my people and your world could be next. Marcus nodded, feeling the pulse of energy in his grip. Then let's make sure they don't get it. Zira smiled, a fierce pride in her eyes. You are not just a human anymore. You are the sword-bearer. And together, we will fight. The wind howled across the mountaintop as Marcus stood with the sword still pulsing in his hands. He could feel its warmth not just as a weapon, but almost as if it had a heartbeat of its own. It was alive in a way he couldn't explain. Like, it was watching him, waiting for his next move. Zira stood silently, watching him with unreadable eyes. She had waited her entire life for this moment to see someone worthy of her father's blade. Yet the person standing before her was not the great warrior she had imagined. He was just a human pilot, lost and confused, but holding a power her strongest warriors had failed to earn. Tell me, Marcus, Zira asked, her voice steady but soft. Why did the sword choose you? You are no warrior. You carry no scars of battle. Marcus looked down at the glowing blade. I don't know. I didn't ask for this. But your father's spirit. He believed courage wasn't just about fighting. Maybe that's what the sword saw. Zira crossed her arms, her gaze narrowing. Courage is not enough in war. You'll die if that's all you have. Marcus raised his eyes to hers. Then teach me. That stopped her. She tilted her head. Slightly. Teach you? Yes, Marcus said firmly. Teach me to fight. To wield this sword properly. If I'm to carry your father's legacy, I won't do it blindly. Zira chuckled quietly, a sound like distant thunder. You have no pride for a human. Most would boast. Yet here you are, asking for help. I'd rather be alive and humble than dead and proud, Marcus replied. Zira finally smiled. Rare, honest smile. She nodded. Then we start now. She walked to the center of the stone circle and drew her own blade, sharp and curved like a predator's claw. Hold your stance, she commanded. No, not like that. Your feet wider apart. Balance yourself, or you'll fall with the first strike. Marcus adjusted, mimicking her movements. The sword in his hand felt heavy, but not in weight was the pressure of responsibility. Good. Now, swing but with intent, Zira instructed. Imagine your enemy before you. Marcus swung, but it was clumsy. Zira shook her head. She stepped behind him, guiding his arms with her hands, adjusting his grip. Not with brute strength, she whispered near his ear. With purpose, with control. Under her guidance, Marcus tried again. The sword hummed, its glow pulsing, with each swing. Slowly, the movements began to feel natural, like the blade was teaching him alongside her. Hours passed. The sun climbed high, then started to dip, casting long shadows. Marcus's body ached, his muscles sore, but he refused to quit. Zira finally called a halt. Enough for today, human. You'll break yourself before the real battle. Marcus collapsed onto the stone, breathing hard. How do you fight like that for hours? Zira chuckled again. Because I was born to it. And soon, you'll have to fight longer and harder. She sat beside him, surprisingly close. The wind was cooler now, the sky turning a soft purple as night approached. You surprise me, Marcus, Zira admitted. Not just because of the sword, but because you listen. My warriors. They're stubborn, proud. You're different. Marcus looked at her, curiosity in his eyes. "Do you hate humans, Gira?" She was silent for a moment, staring at the sky. "I wanted to. After my father died protecting them, I wanted to hate your kind. But my father's last words, recorded in his war journal, said something I never forgot. Strength means nothing without compassion." Marcus nodded slowly. "Maybe that's why the sword didn't choose your warriors. They fight for strength, but compassion, that's harder to carry." Gira looked at him, truly seeing him for the first time. Perhaps my father was right after all. The air between them grew still. In that moment, an unspoken bond formed, not just between teacher and student, but between two people connected by honor, legacy, and a sword that had crossed generations. Suddenly, a horn echoed in the distance, deep and ominous. Gira stood at once, her face hardening. "They're here." "Who?" Marcus asked, standing slowly. "Our enemies," Gira said, her voice grave. "The Shadowclaw Legion. They seek the sword. If they get it, they'll destroy not just my people, but everything they touch." Marcus tightened his grip on the sword, feeling its energy surge through him. "Then let's stop them," he said, his voice steady. Gira glanced at him with respect. "You're still learning, human, but with me, you'll stand a chance." She offered her hand. Without hesitation, Marcus took it. Together, they descended the mountain, ready to face the darkness that awaited them. And though Marcus was still new to war, one thing was certain: the bond of honor between him and Gira would be their greatest strength. Night fell, but the skies didn't rest. From the distant valleys, glowing red lights flickered like embers moving in the dark. The Shadowclaw Legion was coming. Their march was like a storm of fire crawling up the mountain. Marcus stood, with Gira on a ledge overlooking the valley below. The sight was terrifying. Hundreds of Shadowclaw warriors advanced, armored in black, their eyes glowing crimson. They carried jagged weapons, and their roars echoed through the cliffs like howls of beasts hunting prey. Marcus tightened his grip on the glowing sword. He could feel it vibrating faintly, like it sensed the danger ahead. Gira spoke without looking at him, her voice low but sharp. "They come for the sword, Marcus, and they will kill every living thing in their path to get it. Can we stop them?" Marcus asked, unsure if bravery alone was enough. Gira turned to him, her silver eyes reflecting the moonlight. "If we don't, there will be no one left to try." Behind them, Jira's warriors prepared their defenses. They raised spiked barriers, positioned archers along the high walls, and sharpened their blades. But even Marcus could see in their eyes fear, doubt. The Shadowclaws were a force of nightmares. Suddenly, a large warrior approached. He was thickly built, his face scarred and his tusks broken. Marcus recognized him. It was the same alien who had wanted Marcus dead in the fortress. "You still trust this human, Gira?" The warrior growled. "He will die before sunrise. His blood will mean nothing." Gira stood firm. "He carries the sword. My father's legacy burns within it. I trust that." The warrior spat on the ground. "Then we're already lost." Marcus stepped forward. "Maybe, but if we're going to fall, I'd rather fall fighting." The alien warrior glared at him, then turned away without a word. Gira smirked faintly. "You're good with words, human." "Hope I'm better with a sword," Marcus replied. Suddenly, the air grew colder. A shadow moved across the sky, and a deep, guttural voice boomed from the valley. "Bring us the sword, or we shall burn your mountain to ash." Marcus swallowed hard. Who was that? Cyrus' face darkened. "Their leader, Virgil. He has waited decades to claim the sword. He believes it will make him unstoppable." Marcus's hands tightened on the hilt. "Then he can't have it." Gira looked at him, a proud glint in her eye. "Good. Then fight with me." She turned to her warriors. "Tonight, we stand not just for our lives, but for the honor of our ancestors. For Valkyr, my father, who gave his life for unity. For the sword that chose a human to carry its flame." The warriors let out a deep, rumbling cry. Some still looked uncertain, but Gyra's words lit a fire in them. Marcus raised the sword high. The blade responded, bursting into brilliant blue light that bathed the entire ridge. The warriors gasped, and some even dropped to one knee. "I may not be one of you," Marcus shouted, "but I swear none of them will take this sword while I still breathe." The warriors roared back in approval. Then the first arrows flew from the darkness. Fiery bolts streaked the sky, crashing into the defenses. The battle had begun. Gyra drew her blade, her stance solid and graceful. "Stay close to me, human." "Planned on it," Marcus muttered, his heart thudding like a war drum. The Shadowclaw forces surged up the slopes, snarling and clawing their way forward. The air filled with the clash of steel, the cries of pain, and the roars of defiance. Marcus swung the sword, and to his amazement, it guided his hands, its weight moving as if it understood where to strike. He parried a Shadowclaw's axe, the energy from the sword sending the attacker flying back with a burst of light. Gyra fought like a storm, her movements swift and deadly. Every enemy that came close fell before her. Yet, even with their combined strength, the enemy kept coming, endless waves of them. Marcus's body screamed in exhaustion. But the sword's power kept him upright. His mind burned with focus. Every time he thought of giving up, he remembered Gyra's father, the vision of Valkyr in the trial. He couldn't let that sacrifice be for nothing. Gyra suddenly yelled, "Marcus, on your left." He turned. Just in time, blocking a massive hammer aimed for his head. The Shadowclaw growled, its face twisted with rage. Marcus pushed back, the sword flaring, and drove it through the enemy's chest. The Shadowclaw howled before collapsing. Breathing hard, Marcus looked at Gyra. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. They were no longer just a human and an alien warrior. They were allies bound by blood, steel, and the honor of the fallen. And though the night was far from over, one thing was clear: Marcus was not the same man who had woken up chained in a fortress. He was the sword-bearer, and he was ready to finish what fate had started. The sky was burning. Flames and smoke rose high as the battle raged through the night. The mountain fortress trembled with every clash of steel and the roar of beasts. But even as bodies fell and the ground shook, Marcus stood firm. His hands wrapped tightly around the glowing sword that refused to let him fall. Gyra was never far from his side, her own blade flashing like lightning with every swing. Together, they pushed forward, cutting through the invading Shadowclaws who fought like demons unleashed from some dark pit. But it wasn't enough. More enemies poured up the slopes, endless shadows in the firelight. The defenses began to crack. Marcus could see it, the warriors growing tired, the walls beginning to buckle. The enemy's leader, Vergul, had not even joined the fight yet. And when he did, Marcus feared no wall would stop him. Gyra cursed under her breath. She blocked an incoming axe and spun, cutting down her foe in one swift move. "We can't hold them here," she shouted to Marcus. "We need to take the fight to the plains." "The plains." Marcus panted, sweat pouring from his brow. Gyra pointed beyond the cliffs. "The forgotten plains. Open ground where we can stand and fight without being trapped. If we stay here, we'll be surrounded and slaughtered." Marcus looked down at the fortress walls crumbling under pressure. She was right. "Then we move," Marcus agreed. "We make our stand there." Gyra turned and called out to her warriors. Her voice was fierce, cutting through the sounds of war. All of you, fall back to the plains. We fight where the ancestors can see us. The warriors, bloodied and bruised, obeyed. They retreated in an organized rush, covering each other, moving down the paths that led to the plains below. Marcus and Gira were the last to leave. As they descended, Marcus glanced back one last time at the fortress that had been their shield. It stood tall and proud. But even it seemed tired. The forgotten plains stretched wide an open field under the pale light of twin moons. Strange. Stone pillars jutted from the ground, remnants of an ancient battlefield long lost to time. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and earth. Here there was no place to hide, no walls to defend. Only warriors, their blades, and the will to survive. Marcus stood at the front, a glowing sword humming as if it too remembered the battles once fought here. Gira took her place beside him, her warriors lining up behind them. Then, a chilling sound echoed across the plains, the deep, monstrous roar of VAR single quotes, Gull. From the shadows, he appeared, towering, covered in dark armor that looked forged from shadow itself. With burning red eyes and a cruel smile beneath his horned helmet at his back, the Shadowclaw army spread like a black tide, ready to crash upon them. Virgul raised his massive blade and pointed it at Marcus. You carry the sword, human. Surrender it, and I will grant you a quick death. Marcus felt fear claw at his chest. Virgul was unlike any enemy he had ever seen. But then he felt the pulse of the sword in his hands, the warmth of the bond it shared with him and with Gira's people. He stepped forward. If you want the sword, Virgul, Marcus shouted, then come and take it. The Shadowclaw army roared, eager for blood. Gira's warriors responded with their own battle cry. Shaking the ground, without waiting, Marcus charged first. Gira followed a heartbeat later, her shout like thunder in the air. The two armies collided in the center of the plains with the force of crashing worlds. Marcus swung the sword, its energy slicing through armor and flesh. He moved faster than before, every step, every strike guided by the sword's will and his own determination. He wasn't just fighting to survive. He was fighting for Gira, for her father's memory, for every warrior who had stood on these plains long before. Gira fought beside him, her blade a blur, her eyes blazing with fury and pride. Together, they formed an unstoppable Paralian and human, warrior and sword-bearer, bound by honor. But then Virgul himself entered the fight. He smashed through Gira's warriors like they were made of paper, his massive blade glowing with dark energy. When he reached Marcus, he grinned wickedly. You are no warrior, Virgul spat. You are a child playing with a god's weapon. Marcus stood his ground, the sword glowing brighter than ever. Then let's see whose god wins. With a roar, Virgul attacked and Marcus met him head-on. Steel clashed. Light met shadow. And above the forgotten plains, the fate of two worlds was about to be decided. Marcus had never felt strength like this before, just in his muscles, but in his heart. The sword burned in his grip, a brilliant blue flame against the black steel of Virgul's weapon. Each clash sent shockwaves through the air, shaking the very ground beneath them. Virgul growled with every strike, his eyes burning red like twin stars ready to explode. He swung with the power of a beast, but Marcus blocked every blow, his body moving as if the sword itself guided him. You fight well. For a human, Virgul sneered, pressing his blade against Marcus's. But you're still mortal. You'll break. I don't break, Marcus said, his teeth clenched. Not while I hold this sword. Not while they believe in me. Suddenly, Gira appeared, leaping into the fray with a roar. Her blade struck Virgul's side, cutting deep. The dark warlord staggered, eyes flashing with surprise and rage. You're not just fighting him, Virgul growled. You're fighting us. Together, Marcus and Gira pushed forward, their swords dancing in harmony. Every strike, every step, they moved as one. The warriors, watching the battle, stopped to witness the impossible. A human and an alien fighting, side by side as if they'd trained for years together. Virgul roared in frustration, swinging wildly. You think unity will save you. You're still weak. We're stronger together. Marcus shouted with a sudden surge of energy. The sword in Marcus's hands blazed with radiant light. It wasn't just a weapon anymore, it was a beacon. A symbol of all the sacrifices made before him. The spirits of the past seemed to awaken in that light, and Marcus felt their strength joining his dot. He drove the sword forward. Gira struck simultaneously from the side. Virgul screamed, caught between their blades as light and steel pierced through his dark armor. The red glow in his eyes dimmed. With one final gasp of rage, he collapsed to his knees, then to the ground, lifeless. Silence fell over the battlefield. The Shadowclaw warriors froze, their leader dead. Slowly, they dropped their weapons, backing away in fear and disbelief. Gira raised her sword high. Your leader is fallen. Leave this place, Soar, share his fate. The Shadowclaws turned and fled, their dark presence vanishing into the night. The threat that had haunted Gira's people for generations was finally gone. Marcus stood there, chest heaving, the sword still glowing gently in his grip. The warriors around him raised their weapons and cheered, their voices echoing across. The plains Gira stepped to his side, placing a hand on his shoulder. You did it, Marcus. You saved us. No, Marcus said, shaking his head with a small smile. We did it. Together. Gira's eyes softened. Chaos spent her life believing strength was something you carried alone, but now standing beside a human who carried her father's legacy. She understood true strength was shared. The surviving warriors gathered, and among them stood the scarred warrior who had once doubted Marcus. He stepped forward and bowed his head low. You have my respect, human. You fought like one of us. Marcus nodded, humbled. He had come here as a prisoner, and now he stood as an equal, no, as something more, as dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight bathed the forgotten plains in gold. The land, once soaked in blood, now glowed with hope. Gira turned to Marcus and said softly, You are not just the sword-bearer. You are the bridge between our worlds. And my father was right too. Believe in your kind. Marcus smiled, though his body ached. I didn't choose this, but I'll carry it. For him, for you. Gira chuckled gently. You'll need training, human. You're still clumsy. Then teach me, Marcus replied with a grin. She offered her hand once more. This time, it was not as a captor but as a friend. Marcus took it. Together, they walked back toward the mountain, the sun rising behind them. The legacy of the sword was no longer a burden. It was a beginning. A new story written not in blood alone, but in unity, trust, and honor. And though many challenges would still come, one thing was certain. Marcus, the human, and Gira, the alien warrior, had become legends, and legends never die.